Welcome back, everyone, to the first afternoon session of Brand2Global Conference, our first fully virtual event. I hope you had a nice lunch and a little break. Our next session is beginning, and let's see if I can ask Julia and Mélanie, would you please share your webcams again? Great. Good afternoon, ladies, and thanks for joining us. All right. And 1 second here while I find my introduction. All right, welcome everyone. This afternoon,
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome Julia, and welcome Mélanie. All right, today I'm with Julia Locatelli, Account Director at Creative Culture, and Mélanie Chevalier, CEO of Creative Culture. And before we get started, we'd like to ask everyone a poll question really quickly to better understand who you are and how close this topic is to you on a daily basis. And we'll give you just a moment to answer the question. And I'm launching the poll now. And Julia, while people are answering here, if you have trouble seeing the poll or the results, just let me know and I'll be happy to relay the results when we're done here.
Okay.
Great. While you're answering those questions, I'll just start our introduction. And our third presenter today is joining us by video. And Celine Hurelle is a travel and culture lover, a dual French and Australian citizen, and she's been living with those passions by working in the past 21 years around the globe at managing strategy and change management in various fields of expertise, such as branding, digital, and distribution and RM in hospitality. She is currently leading the Grand Mercure brand at Accor. Reminder, Accor is the leader in hospitality with more than 5,000 hotels around the globe. Celine's responsibility at Grand Mercure encompasses all aspects of the global brand management, from strategy to product, communication and service culture, just to name a few, and driving the local implementation of the brand in their hotels around the world. And I'll turn it over to Mélanie. I think Mélanie is muted. Just a second. I've just unmuted you, Mélanie.
Thank you, Alex. Thanks. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon or evening, according to where you're based. So my name is Mélanie. I'm the founder of Creative Culture, which I set up in 2008. As background, I grew up and lived around the world most of my life, from Taiwan to Brazil, Cameroon, Spain, France, and now the UK. So languages and cultures have always really been a part of me and shaped who I am and what I do today. I've been in cross-cultural communications and consulting for the past 17 years. And when I decided to set up Creative Culture, I really felt there was a gap in the market. Whilst there was more than ever a need to transcreate and adapt all of the campaigns and messages for the various cultures and countries, I also saw there was a need to be filtering through all of those cultural insights as early as possible in the process to make it relevant across the different countries. So using local to feed global. And I think today, this case study of Grand Mercure is really quite an interesting one, because it's what it actually showcases.
Thank you.
And as for me, I'm Julia. I'm an account director at Creative Culture, and I've been with the company for over 8 years now. And some of you may have seen my name and heard my accent. So I'm French with Italian background. So that's probably the reason why I decided to go into cross-cultural management. And as Mélanie mentioned, and as we'll develop during this webinar, we feel that today, in this era of digitalization and internationalization, it's key for brands to be very agile and flexible to adapt to things that are happening in the world every day. And this is why we believe that working with Grand Mercure is the perfect example of how that can be applied on a global level, and how we're going to see how Grand Mercure has applied this with their cultural compass and how they leverage cultural diversity to implement a global framework in their local markets. So I know that people expected to see Celine today, but for health reasons, she won't be able to attend in person. But she was kind enough to record some videos for us. So Alex will start with the first video.
Sure, and before we jump to the first video, let's quickly take a look at the poll results here.
Yes.
And,
so
all right.
I cannot see them.
Okay, so I'll read them real quick to you, Julia.
Yes, thank you.
Question was, what role do you play in your company's localization efforts? And people were able to select all the answers that apply. Our first three answers had about 6% of the respondents, and they were folks who were accountable for localization budgets at brand or agency. The same amount had selected negotiating and selecting partners at brand or agency and managing the day-to-day relations with localization partners. So rather small sample sizes there, 6% for each answer. Moving up, we have 13% of people answered that brand reputation and or risk management in the organization is their responsibility. And then about 80% of people selected other. So there are our first poll.
That's a great share. Thank you for answering that. It really helps us understand who we're speaking to, because you all see us, but we also are interested in seeing who is behind the screen.
Great. So I will now queue up our first video and from Celine, and give me just a second here. Here we go.
Thank you, Julia. Let me start by giving you a little bit of background on what makes Grand Mercure unique and relevant in the context of our chat today. Grand Mercure is one of the 39 hotel brands of the Accor Group and truly the only global hotel brand in the industry worldwide. And by this, I mean that we are an international managed premium brand with the specificity of being tailored to each market or to each country where we are present. And today we are present across 12 countries that have as unique as diversified cultures across the different countries of Asia, Pacific, Latin America, and the Middle East. And in all those locations and countries, we offer our local guests with a highly relevant and meaningful local experience that is in full integrity with the local culture and their local customs. And that integrity is cornerstone to what we're going to discuss today, as showing you the best practice of our collaboration between Grand Mercure and Creative Culture. That integrity was and is cornerstone to the success of our Grand Mercure brand, given the highly domestic audience we have in all those locations. We locally not only have to ring true to the local audience and our local guests, but we also had to go beyond. We had to inspire them and to be highly credible, which is not only one step further, but arguably a key challenge for an international brand. And that, what I mean by being inspirational and credible in each of the 12 national cultures of our brand, we could only achieve that by reversing the traditional model of the global brand, which is a traditional top-down model. So we had to go bottom-up, and beyond that, we also had to go beyond the simple local adaptations here and there of the brand locally, because that could be perceived as gimmicky by our local audience. But rather, what we had to do was to dig deeper towards a lot more meaningful understanding of each local culture to recreate our brand experience locally. And at the same time, we had to enable this to come to life through a global brand model. So what we decided at Grand Mercure is that the real power, we would actually give it to our local teams. And we decided not to start from global, but to start locally from what makes each local culture singular in each country to define our brand experience. And from there, look at it and find a way for the global brand to enable and amplify the stories into a solid and a consistent global brand framework. And by doing this, what we did was to leverage both the best and the global organization can bring with the best and what a local organization can bring as well. And that has given us a unique and meaningful local relevancy and diversity for our guests locally, and at the same time, a strong and differentiating international brand power for our partners, but also for our guests globally. And this is really has brought us together with creative culture, because when I met Mélanie and Julia, I found there was a clear connection in the ways we were appreciating the ways of working between global and local teams, and the importance of cultural integrity of an international business.
Okay, great. Yeah, so just to bounce off Celine's video, we fully agree with what she was saying, because creative culture was founded on the idea that we just can't ignore culture when we create concepts and campaigns and strategies that will be implemented locally. I'm going to ask you another question, actually, if you don't mind launching a new poll, Alex. Do you think that culture is impacting the success of a brand strategy or a campaign?
Great, so we'll give attendees a minute to respond.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of yeses coming in so far. All right, we'll give it about another 10 seconds. So far of our audience, almost 70% have voted and 100% have said yes.
That's great news.
All right. And I'll share the results real quick. And yes, no big surprise, 100% said yes.
Great. So thank you for answering. And I'm happy to say that like 95% of top senior executives from 100, the top 100 global corporations, we all agree that culture is super important when it comes to making or breaking a concept or a campaign. And this is actually key for brands like Grand Mercure. And this is also a belief that's shared by everyone in our company and our teams in our network of specialists. The team based here in London is our team of project managers and account managers, but we also work with a network of experts and specialists around the world. This is a network that's constantly growing. We currently have about 2,400 experts in basically virtually any market in the world. And as I said, it's constantly growing because we expand on specializations, we expand on type of services that we can offer to our clients, the support we offer to them. So this is an ongoing process of testing, of having recommendations for people we trust. So it's a group that's constantly growing that allows us to be hyper agile and hyper flexible when it comes to answering some of the most unusual challenges when it comes to strategy, cultures, and also languages. And that allows us also to support our clients and brands like Grand Mercure from the conceptualization phase, with everything that has to do with fitting into the strategy of the global campaign to make it relevant locally, throughout to the rollout when we're looking at content management or local engagement with the local audiences. So before we go into more details, there are several challenges that Grand Mercure was facing, but I'm keen to understand what are your challenges. So attendees watching us today, what are your challenges when rolling out or thinking of a campaign or a concept that's going to be rolled out in local markets? So
Okay,
Alex,
we're on. Yeah, we're on. I can see it as well. So here is the question. So what would you say is the headache factor when building and rolling out a global strategy in your organization? So whether it be the local resources or lack of, the costs that are involved, processes that are into place or not, an aspect related to brand guardianship or consistency, or lastly, stakeholder disengagement or compliance. Alex,
Great.
are these multiple choice?
Yes, people are able to answer with multiple answers if they want to, and we'll leave the poll run for about another 25 seconds or so. About half of the people have voted. If you haven't had a chance to vote, please submit your vote now. All right, and we'll give it another 5 seconds, and we will close our poll. And I will share the results coming up right here.
Okay,
right.
there's quite a big mix, but interestingly, I think brand guardianship and consistency went over, both scoring the same amount, actually 67%, followed by the processes and costs, and lastly, local resources, which is interesting because it just shows that processes are very much at the heart and managing the stakeholders of what could be the complexity within the process. And I guess this is something we will tackle in the next few slides. So back to Celine, I guess.
The Culture Compass is the global process that we created at Grand Mercure to bring to life the global strategy of the brand and enable this fine balance between a consistent and differentiating global framework that could drive our business internationally, and on the other hand, balancing it with a meaningful and relevant brand experience in each of our markets of presence around the globe. The Culture Compass is a consistent global brand framework that we provided to our local teams to tailor the brand meaningfully and consistently in each of our markets and their markets. It relies importantly on a solid local intelligence provided by local experts that are the only people that can help us reach cultural integrity that is so important for the brand of Grand Mercure. And for this, we needed a partner to support us to implement this process. And we need a partner to have a cost-efficient model and to be global as well. And there were 5 criteria in total and challenges that we needed solutions for. The first one was to address the structure. We needed to have the right organization to support the process at the level needed between global and our own definition of local at Grand Mercure, which is at each country. And for this, we needed a solid global coordination point. Someone that could at the same time coordinate the process for us in an efficient manner across multiple markets, doing that at the same time, doing this as well based on one single brief and not have to redo it every time, and access the right level of expertise whatever the country. So basically to have the structure to be able to facilitate a one-stop shop, in other words. The second criteria or challenge that we needed to address with our partner was the expertise. We needed to access the right level of expertise across the globe in all our countries of presence, whether they were big markets such as Australia, Middle East or Brazil. They're going to be unique markets such as China or smaller markets such as Myanmar. The third criteria or challenge was time to market. And that was the capacity to go fast and somewhat help us industrialize the personalization of our brand. The fourth criteria or challenge was brand integrity. We needed a true partner who could support us preserving not only the process, but the integrity of the brand throughout the implementation of that process. So basically a brand guardian. And the fifth criteria, probably the most important, was to be able to manage the cost efficiency of the model. Because for our model to work, we needed it to not only make marketing sense, but also generate a significant cost efficiency added value.
Yes, so just bouncing off Celine's video again, the evolvement of creative culture and this collaboration with Grand Mercure made total sense for us, because this is exactly what we preach. Being able to provide the local markets with a brand tool that is tailored to them, to their expectations, but also to the expectations of their clients and the local audiences, both internally with the different stakeholders in the local markets, but also externally with the end client. So when Celine came to us with this exciting brief, we immediately connected. And I'm just going to present a quick overview of how things went in terms of methodology, so that you can understand the process. So this was a 2-step process, and there are different reasons for that. The first one was that some markets needed a full scope in terms of support, and some markets were only looking to gather the core insights to then create the cultural compass. But the first step that we undertook in agreement with Celine and the local teams was to gather local market intelligence. And this is what you can see on the slide on the left. The idea was to gather intelligence or local market intelligence that was meaningful and true to the local markets, to then direct the brand in a direction that was meaningful and true to the local audiences through different brand programs. So obviously, because it's hospitality, sleep was one of them. There was food, there was fitness and well-being all together. But to do that, to gather that core insights that would fully express and show what the local culture is about, we put teams of experts together per country or per market. And those experts were part of our network around the world. And they were experts in hospitality, in luxury brands, because Grand Mercure is a premium brand, and this is at the core of who they are and what they want to express to the local audiences. We work with strategists and experts that had this knowledge, this understanding of the industry and of the challenges related to a luxury brand and a hospitality brand. But that did not stop there. So gathering the insight was one part, but interpreting the insights in a meaningful way for the local audience is another exercise that only experts with the true understanding of the brand and of the challenges of the industry and this vision of the industry was needed, because we had to interpret the insights based on the values of Grand Mercure, and there were several values, different layers that we had to take into account, but also adding on the layer that Grand Mercure is a premium brand and it's a hospitality brand, and it is a brand for the local audiences, made by the local culture. Once this was established, we then moved on to the storytelling part of the process, which is what you see on the right side. So all that insight that we sourced, we then rephrased it, we then processed it in a more storytelling way to create what is the actual tool, so the cultural compass. And this is an extract of the tool, one of the slides about the different characters to define the brands and what it means in the local culture to be sincere. So as you can see, there are a few details, a short description, but to do so, we worked with a team of copywriters that could really rephrase the insight to make it more engaging and impactful and inspirational for the teams that were going to use the tool in the local markets.
Great. So little sum up, but I guess Celine and Julia have done a great job in the previous slides to talk about this. So looking at our side of the spectrum and sort of the challenges and the benefit of collaborating together alongside Grand Mercure on the project, the first sort of challenge for us was on obviously getting a full understanding of what the brand is about, because you'll never have as good an idea as the brand stakeholders themselves. So Celine with her teams at a central level, but also the local markets. Again, it's important to say that this is a brand that really inscribes itself into the domestic market, and in each country will welcome a lot of people from the market and with their own understanding of what the values may mean or how they should be represented. The second aspect was to put forward the right experts with the right experience, as Julia was mentioning, across the board in terms of the industry, but also the understanding of all the different matters and the brand values we wanted to portray. And so the local markets intelligent process really went into feeding the direction for the brand within each of the countries. So literally giving a meaning to the global framework, but with this little important local touch and twist that makes sense to the local ears. And then it was finding a process that would make sense to the client, obviously, both at a central level, making sure that they could keep a hand on this consistency and the brain framework that they had established for it, but also collaborating with the local markets in the process and how to validate this throughout. So next, Julia is going to run through the solutions that we found and the answers.
Yeah, and one aspect that Celine mentioned that you just mentioned, Mélanie, is having one single contact that could manage a liaison between Celine and her team in Paris, but also in each market. And this is the one-stop shop model that we see as a key advantage for many reasons. I was the key contact on this project. So I was liaising with Celine, who was at the headquarters, so the global client. But I was also in touch with every single stakeholder in the market to organize the project, but also to understand their expectations, what they already had put in place into the markets, because this is also something that was really important. We could not ignore what they had already done in each country. And so there was this connection between Paris and then each market that was interesting to manage. But that connection, so this one-stop shop model, really helped streamline the processes and the back and forth as we were finalizing the local market intelligence. And that really helped being a lot faster in terms of time to market, without having to do 10 or 20 back and forth. Being able to exchange with the local markets and Celine at the same time really helped optimize the process and be a lot quicker than normally.
She also mentioned about it being cost efficient, right? So how did you achieve that?
Yes, so that applies on two levels. The first one is that we, as I mentioned, we put together a cost proposal according to the requirements of the markets and the stages they were at. So some markets had developed more strategies, more they already have some local insights. So the idea was to offer a cost or a budget proposal that would work for every single market, and they would choose if they want to go with the full scope of the project, which involved the local market intelligence and the storytelling part, or simply the local market intelligence. That applies for a market like Australia, where they're English speaking, and they will be able to handle the storytelling parts without any issues in terms of retranscribing the insight and the brand direction and the brand vision in English. And the second aspect was that we applied the same budget or the same cost for every single market. There was no discrimination in terms of markets. And that was great for Grand Mercure at their end, because there was no surprise. They knew that they would push the proposal or the budgets to the markets, and then the markets would then decide if they are okay to go for it or not. And so that's why it was more cost efficient for them, and we were able to be agile on the costs. So Celine and Mélanie and I, we discussed this at the very beginning when we discussed the different challenges related to this project, is that we put a cost proposal according to the requirements of the cultural compass, knowing exactly what the project would entail, the different programs, the level of research of insight that was needed really helped put together a bespoke budget. So these are new challenges that we really enjoy.
Great. And then there was quite an emphasis, I guess, in terms of brand values and the guardianship and what that meant for the teams at a central level, right?
Yes, exactly. We started with Celine. We met with Celine and discussed the different aspects of the projects. So the different areas or topics where they needed to gather insights or they needed more knowledge in each country. So we co-created working tools. We usually work with questionnaires, but every single questionnaire that we create for different projects is completely bespoke and tailored to the type of challenges that our clients have. And in this case, it was exactly the same. We co-created those questionnaires with Celine, and we made sure that she was happy with it before we launched with our experts in the market. And that's how we basically managed to produce insights and brand proposals and brand directions that really resonated perfectly with the local markets, because we had a brief and a questionnaire that would work for every single market. whatever the answers would be, the idea and the purpose was the same for every single culture. So we acted as the brand guardianship, the brand guardian throughout the process on every single market, because we aligned with Celine from the very beginning on the objectives, on the challenges, on the intricacies of working on such tool or such brand tool. And that really helped in the process, and also in the review of all the insights that we were receiving from our experts, and then that we created into a storytelling later on. So yes, in terms of processes, these are the key points we felt were very important for us. But we wouldn't be able to finish this presentation without speaking of the current context and the current events. And we were actually very interested in knowing what a crisis like COVID-19 meant for a brand like Grand Mercure. So maybe Mélanie, would you like to start with this?
Yeah, sure. So I speak in Celine's words, and I hope I will be truthful and faithful to the message she was trying to share. But one thing that has been a requirement within the current context, obviously, especially in hospitality, that has been very affected around the world, was to be able to be very agile and yet to team up, so between the headquarters and the local markets, and trying to really navigate through this crisis. And it has been a strength of their model from day one, really, this ability to react very quickly, to have the local teams empowered and have a say in terms of what makes most sense within their markets, for example. And Celine gave the example of Brazil, which is, I think, the country where the brand was born originally, and it is a big market for Grand Mercure. And there they were able to continue running the business for the first couple of months when the country wasn't so affected, until recently, obviously, as we all know. And then Asia was starting to recover. So the headquarters really had a support role with all of the markets. So really it was this agile way of working and collaboration between the headquarters and the local markets. Then it was about also addressing the changes in consumer behavior and expectation, because as with all industries at the moment, there has been huge amounts of change in terms of how people are consuming and what they would like to experience, and particularly around travel, understanding how this resonates across the different countries. As I mentioned, it is a domestic focused brand, so there will be also opportunities, hopefully, for Grand Mercure in the future to recover, because with the restrictions imposed in the different countries, people might be able to travel within their own countries in the long run. And then obviously there was quite a lot of guarantees around safety, transparency and cleanliness that had to be sort of thought through at a central level to come and support all the local entities and hotels in the countries.
Yeah, we're actually currently publishing a white paper regarding the different challenges and hygiene measures that are put into place in hospitality. But it's been very interesting to see that, and the different strategies and the creativity and resources that have been put into finding solutions and making sure that hotels could reopen. It's very interesting to see. But as for us, in terms of different challenges when it comes to the COVID-19, it was really about thinking on our feet and finding tools and solutions that would help us answer the challenges of our clients, or clients like Grand Mercure, quicker, because obviously there is an urgency behind it. And a brand like Grand Mercure, or any global brand, just not stop communicating in those times. It's key to maintain the link. So we had to come as usual, and I think we're good at thinking on our feet with new ways to work. Obviously, we're all working from home, apart from today. Things are going back to normal, but our ability to provide bespoke approach, to think of new processes, to adapt budgets and timings for our clients has been pushed to new heights. So we've seen new ways of working, We've adapted to completely new challenges with quicker deadlines, quicker turnaround, budgets that have been impacted a lot, lack of resources. Obviously, some companies had to put a lot of people on furlough, unfortunately. So the resources were scarce, human resources also. So we were able to step forward and help our clients by providing the support that they desperately needed in some of the markets where nobody was available anymore, and also doing it on their budget and thinking about their objectives. But on the specialist side, when we're looking at our network, it's super important for us to maintain the link. And I think there was a need and an ask from our specialists and our experts in the local markets. And so just like what we usually do with our clients by sharing white papers, webinars, or speaking like today, what we did was organizing webinars with our specialists to share new skills, to help them be more efficient in a time of crisis, to help them better answer the needs of their clients. So not just us, but also all the agencies that they work with on all their services. So this is why it was very important for us to maintain that link and share that knowledge with our clients, but also our specialists. So as a conclusion, we have seen quite a few key learnings, but the most important for us, I think, is that implementing a global model doesn't have to be a headache, as long as you understand the challenges, but also as long as you have the right teams and the right partner, either locally or at a global level. And as was mentioning, creative culture is a one-stop shop. So that can be either in the local markets or as one single entity. And as long as the challenges are clear and that all the stakeholders involved in the creation of a tool like the Cultural Compass are have a mutual understanding of the different challenges and the way or the path they want to go down, then there's no reason that a global model should be a headache. And there is also an important point that we want to keep from this presentation is that one size fits all does not necessarily does not work. I think this is something very important for us, is that we need to find the solutions that answer the challenges and not implement solutions that, because they worked in the past, should work now. And I think this case study that we've presented today answer and illustrates our point very clearly. Now, if you have any questions, Alex will take them and we'll answer them for you.
Well, thank you very much, Julia and Mélanie. That was a great presentation. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'd also like to send our best wishes out to Celine. Our first question comes from Ingi at Nimsy Insights. Thank you for a great presentation. I love how you pre-recorded the videos. Excellent idea. My question is, could you elaborate a bit more on the types of profiles that you use locally? How do you assure that the experts and specialists' input is objective and neutral?
Yes. So the profiles that we work with in each market were strategists, people that have experience in brand direction, in planning, and there are people that we have contacted and tested. So every person that comes and joins our network of specialists has been tested or has been selected based on their skills and their experience. We also work from recommendations that from people that we trust and that we've worked with. We rely on their experience, on samples of work that they've completed, and then we test we test them as well. And to make sure that the insight that we provide is objective, we always work with a team of 2 to 3 specialists per market. So we constantly challenge the insight to make sure that it's objective. Obviously, we ask for sources, we review those sources, and we question things constantly. So having several people work on the insight helps us make sure that it is objective.
I think another point is really interesting that you raise consistency, or objectivity, sorry, because it's really important. But I think more than that is also the collaboration with the local markets at Grand Mercure, and the fact that there is an exchange, because we can't forget that whilst this project was about cultural aspirations and values and so on, there was still an innovation aspect to it, because we didn't want to go and tap into the most obvious cultural references. It was also a way of showcasing how the brand is really, at the forefront of new ideas and new experiences and so on for customers. So it's about finding the people who understand that, as well as not just being really focused on the traditional aspect of the culture solely.
Yeah, we closely work with the local markets, and the people in the local markets where communications or brand directors at Grand Mercure. So they know the brand, they understand that it is every single brand proposal has to be modern and premium. But they also know the culture because they are usually from that country. So there was an ongoing exchange with the local markets, and they would validate the insight and validate the brand proposals that we made to implement this insight into the Grand Mercure hotels. The idea was not to stereotype the culture, to make a folklore out of it. It was really key insight that would be instilled in the way Grand Mercure received their guests, in the way that they serve the food. But it's not about making a show of the culture. It's about showing the local travelers, the domestic travelers, which is the key target audience for Grand Mercure, that we have understood the culture, that we've integrated it, and that when they enter a Grand Mercure hotel, they feel like Grand Mercure gets their culture and understands it deeply.
Great. So we're pretty much out of time here. However, I'd like to take one more question quickly, if we can keep the answer to about 1 minute. Just want to make up for the time we lost with the video there, having a little bit of problem. Our last question will come from Gabriel, and he says, very insightful. Couldn't help but think that in the case of Grand Mercure was a situation where they realized the importance of being relevant on a local basis, so had a very mature view of their global presence. Going beyond this, I understand there's a user journey that happens with the client organizations for them to get to the point where they need this kind of advisory. What are some examples that can be easily quantified, i.e. data, that you've been using to try and demonstrate the benefit of taking this approach?
Well, the brand is inherently local. The brand was founded in Brazil, and the concept of a local brand was then rolled out in other markets. They have about 12 locations, but it was founded on that idea that the culture would be the basis of everything they do within those hotels. So Grand Mercure is the overall brand, but each hotel is very singular in the way they do things. So the culture impacts the global framework, and it inspires it rather than slapping the global brands on the culture, on the local culture. In terms of data, I think it's a bit too early to say or to quantify. This has been launched, I think, last year, started last year. And I'm happy to share more information later on if we can gather some data with Celine, and I can do a little follow-up maybe on LinkedIn later on if some people want to follow the conversation. In terms of data, I think it is a bit early, but the feedback from the local markets has been incredible, and we hope that after COVID-19 or in the next few months, we'll be able to see the impact of such brand tool in the local markets.
Well, thank you very much, Mélanie. Again, really appreciate the presentation. We do have a couple more questions. I wonder, I might, you know, people could reach out to you on LinkedIn, or perhaps I might send you an individual question that we could get an answer for. Okay?
Pleasure.
Absolutely, no problem.
Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for a great presentation. We're going to take about an 11-minute break here, and we'll be back with Julio Leal of Siena at precisely 1:30 p.m. Central European Time. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.